I currently have 52 piercings, and in my life I have had over 70. And in the time that I've been getting piercings, there have been a few that have made me cry, and in this week's video I'm going to be going through that list. When I was 14, I got my belly button pierced, which wasn't that painful to get pierced, but the worst part was getting in the car right after my piercing was done. We had one of those cars that has a front seat and a back seat, but to get into the back seat you have to climb in through the front. And my sister was being exceptionally difficult that day and refused to sit in the back seat. So I had to climb in through the front, which was very, very painful, and sit in the back seat. And the next day my sister thought that it would be funny to punch me in the gut, and not very funny. It goddamn hurt. I got my eyebrow pierced when I was 16, which wasn't very painful, and then it was taken out when I was in a coma, and then I got it re-pierced when I was 17, which hurt a lot more than the first time. When you get a piercing over an already healed piercing, it tends to hurt a little bit more. And my eyebrow piercings kept getting rejected, and I shouldn't have kept getting them re-pierced. But me being stubborn, I refused and I kept getting them pierced, and they kept getting rejected, and every single time it hurt more and more when I got a new piercing. And my horizontal eyebrow piercing, that brought a tear to my eye. That one was pretty painful. And another one that ended up getting rejected. My industrial piercing was nowhere near as bad as some of my other cartilage piercings. When the needle went in through the top of my ear, it didn't hurt very much. But then it took me by surprise when the needle went in through the bottom. That bloody hurt. I didn't quite tear up, but I was pretty close to it. But the healing process of the industrial was probably worse than getting the actual piercing done. An industrial piercing can take up to a year to fully heal, and within the first month or so, it was so bloody painful. And when your piercing is fresh, you don't really want to touch it, but you sort of have to if you're going to clean it, because if you don't clean it, it's just going to get infected. My most painful cartilage piercing was my rook, and this one, without a doubt, brought tears to my eyes. I was not expecting that to be as painful as it was. And part of my cartilage is thicker in certain spots than others, and where the rook piercing was done, oh, that was so painful. And the healing process was almost worse than getting the actual piercing done. It only took about a week and a half for my rook piercing to fully heal, but in that time, it was so painful. And my daith piercing, that one, it's sort of coming close to how much my rook hurt. Not quite as much as my rook, but pretty goddamn close. But the healing process for my daith was not as bad as the healing for my rook. I got my first 2 conch piercings when I was on holidays in New Zealand in 2013. And I got my first tongue piercing on the same day. And I wanted to get my tongue piercing done before my conch because I thought that my tongue was going to hurt more. I was sadly mistaken. My tongue piercing, it didn't hurt much. I thought it was going to hurt so much more than it did. But that's another thing, that the healing process is way worse than getting the actual piercing done. And coming in at 4th place with my cartilage piercings would be my anti-tragus. My tragus didn't hurt that bad, but my anti-tragus, on the other hand, that one flippin' hurt. The first one I got done was on my left ear, and that one didn't hurt quite as much as the one on my right. But that's just because of the positioning of my ear and the part where the piercing was done. On this side, it was done further down, and on the other side, it was done higher up. I got my first nose piercing when I was 15, and this was done with a gun. And I do not, under any circumstance, suggest getting any piercing done with a gun. This was when I didn't know how dangerous piercing guns were, and I regret getting it done with a gun. It bloody hurt. It made my eyes water, it made my nose run, it was so uncomfortable. And when I got my 2nd, 3rd and 4th nose piercing, they were all done with a needle and they hurt a lot less. They still made my eyes water a little bit, but nowhere near as bad as when I got them done with the gun. My side tongue piercing, that one was another one that brought tears to my eyes, or came pretty bloody close. I had no idea that it was going to hurt as much as it did. The side of my tongue is so much thicker than the middle of my tongue, and I could feel the resistance of the needle when it was going through. And the lady who does most of my piercings, she even had a little bit of trouble getting the needle through my tongue. And my tongue bled so much more than when I got my first tongue piercing, and the healing process was so much worse. My first tongue piercing took about a week to fully heal, probably a little bit less than a week, and my second tongue piercing, that took a bit over 3 weeks to heal, and in that time it was so painful. I ended up getting a bit of a lump right where the needle had gone through and where the bar was sitting on my tongue, and my tongue swelled up so bad that the ball pushed so heavily against that really lumpy, hard part where my tongue had swollen around it. And if I had to get it re-pierced, there is no way I would ever do that. And I would never get another piercing on the other side of my tongue. One reason, because it would bloody hurt, and another reason being that I have a really big vein underneath the other side of my tongue. Out of all of my lip piercings, my Medusa would have been the most painful. I was not expecting that it was going to hurt as much as it did. My other lip piercings didn't hurt that bad, but my Medusa, holy cow, that one did make my eyes water quite a bit. It was really quick, and I think I let out a little swear word when I was getting it done. And the next day, my top lip was so swollen. It looked ridiculous. And it was very painful to clean, and it took about a week and a half to 2 weeks to fully heal. And this is another one that I would never get pierced again. With all that being said, I don't want to discourage any of you guys from getting any of these piercings. Everybody is going to experience pain very differently, and what hurt for me might not hurt for you. If you have your own experience that you would like to share, please write it in the comments. And if you have any questions, please ask, and if I can help, I'm more than happy to. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye!